The hot topic among West Virginia fans right now is who will be the next head coach for the West Virginia Mountaineer basketball team. Well, one thing's for sure, according to Hoppy Kercheval with WV MetroNews, it is not going to be Bob Huggins. But could it be John Beilein? That's another hot topic today. A lot of fans want John Beilein. A lot of fans don't. Paul and I are going to talk about and debate that topic, and we're going to do that right after this word from our sponsor.
This episode of Hoops from the Hills is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time.
With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for.
Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com, or you can come in person today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
What is up? My name is Couz.
My name is Mountaineer Paul.
And we present to you another episode of
Hoops from the Hills.
Today, again, we're talking about the soon-to-be coaching vacancy, more than likely, at West Virginia University for the men's basketball program. A couple old coaches, their names have come up in the news and on social media in the last 24 to 48 hours. Thanks in part to Hoppy Kercheval, at least from the Bob Huggins perspective. Hoppy Kercheval from WV MetroNews put an article out today. I'm going to share the article and read it real quick. It's not very long. It says, Huggins has zero chance of returning as WVU's coach. WVU Athletic Director Ren Baker will conduct a nationwide search for a permanent head basketball coach. Baker indicated when he hired Josh Eilert on an interim basis last year that he would wait until the end of the season. However, if Baker is doing his job, he is already exploring the possibilities. Eilert should be considered. The longtime assistant took over under difficult circumstances and has had to adapt to one challenge after another. He has handled the position with professionalism and grace, although the wins have been in short supply. One name that will not be on WVU's radar is Bob Huggins. The Hall of Fame coach and West Virginia sports legend was forced to resign last year after first dropping an anti-gay slur on a Cincinnati radio show and, just weeks later, getting arrested in Pittsburgh for drunk driving. Huggins made matters worse by claiming he never really resigned and then threatening to sue the university. Those events and his obstinacy, and I may have butchered that word. It's a word I've never heard of, to be honest. Those events and his obstinacy burned up much of the well-earned goodwill he had built up at the university over the years. The chatter continues that Huggins would like his old job back, and the coach has his supporters in Mountaineer Nation who would like to see him back on the bench as soon as possible. But that simply is not going to happen. According to my sources, there is zero interest at the highest levels of the WVU Athletic Department or Stewart Hall for Huggins to return as coach or even be under consideration. Zero. Apparently, that hardened position holds true for the Board of Governors as well. I understand that maybe only one member of the 17-member board would be in support of Huggins. Yes, there are donors who remain loyal to Huggins, but the number that would be willing to push hard for his return has dwindled significantly since the events of last year. There is not enough support among the money people to pressure Baker, President Gordon Gee, and a majority of the board to give in. There simply is no avenue for Huggins to return as coach. An elegant epilogue to this story would be if Huggins is one day welcomed to the Coliseum for a formal recognition of his historic accomplishments and contributions to the university. But that will not happen until Huggins and those closest to him understand that he will never be the head coach again and that he must publicly take responsibility for his conduct. Paul, balls to you, my man.
You know, I mean, it's no secret that Kercheval doesn't like Bob Huggins, hasn't liked Bob Huggins. This has all happened. This feels like he's rubbing his nose in it a little bit in this article, just my opinion. I mean, it is fact. It is fact. But you can tell he relishes in typing those very words. Just wanted to point that out. So that's what your life has come to, Hoppy. But anyway, personally, I feel bad for Hugs. I understand he put himself in this situation. But as somebody who's going to have been given a bunch of chances, I can't help but feels extremely sorry for him, and it seems like he's doing better. He's lost all the weight. Um, Hopefully his fish fry goes well and nobody interferes with that. But as far as John Beilein goes, I think he is one of the top choices, no doubt about that. But he's definitely not the top choice, to me. I think there's other guys you have to ask first. Even unrealistic guys like Jay Wright, who's already said no, before you get to John Beilein. That's just my opinion. Is John Beilein probably the highest profile candidate that's the most realistic at this point? Yeah, he probably is. But I would still probably lean towards a young, proven guy that hasn't as proven as John Beilein, like Will Wade. I've said that all along. Listen, Will Wade in his 30s had LSU, which is not a great basketball program, or it wasn't until he got there, competing for Elite Eights, Final Fours, Sweet 16s. He really did such a good job, and he's doing the same thing in McNeese right now. I really do think he would be great. Wants a show clause, and that's not the big catch with him. Is over with. But at the end of the day, I would probably be happy with Beilein. It's just he's in his 70s, man. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. This guy's 70-something years old. I can't get past that, And to be fair, I would like to see him talk, just to get to observe his faculties a little bit, just to be keeping it real. Because we saw Bob Huggins skate around in his legend for a couple years past his prime. So I just want to make sure, I have no authority on it, but just personally for me, I would like to see how he acts and sounds and how sharp he seems. Not that 71, you're not in the grave or anything like that, but coaching high-level basketball is an extremely intense thing, and 71 is very old to be doing it, flat out to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, well said, man. And I know you and I differ a little bit on this topic, on the John Beilein topic. And I'm not saying he would be my first call. And first off, let me just lay the groundwork. The reason this is coming up, and I'm not going to go – there's a list. 24/7 Sports, Mike Couz created a list of coaches he thinks are in the hunt for the job, basically. He's not making any predictions or anything like that. It's just a list of about 12 guys that he thinks are potential candidates. And John Beilein, he put on the list because he feels like, at least the way I interpreted it, and we'll leave a link to this. It is behind the paywall, so take that for what it's worth. But the way I interpreted Mike's comments is that they're basically going to make John Beilein say no, if he hasn't already. And maybe he has. We don't know that. That's the thing. Nobody knows that or not, whether that's true or not. Has he already said no, or not? I don't know. That's just Mike's opinion. Like I said, he's not predicting it. He's not been told that, I don't think, directly. He's basically reading the tea leaves from what he's hearing from his various sources that are close to the situation. But John Beilein was only one of 12 names on that list. And as far as Beilein goes, in my opinion, even though he may not be first on my list, I do think he's definitely one of the top candidates, even despite his age. And here's why to me. Number one, he seems younger than 71 when you consider his energy level, things like that. I think he seems younger than 71. He's only been out of the game a couple of years, so it's not like, he's been out forever. He did go to the NBA for about a year, and he's been doing some consulting work there since he left Cleveland. I think it was Cleveland where he was a coach. And he's done some work with the Detroit Pistons and whatnot. And he has been out of the college game a few years, and I think John Beilein's a very smart guy. I think he knows enough about the college game still. He stayed close enough to it to understand the ins and outs. I don't think NIL will be a problem, which is what one worry people have, and here's why. All he needs is to hire somebody on his staff or retain somebody on his staff, like a Jay Couz, for example, that could handle all that for him. Delegate that to somebody else. And if he's willing to do that, then I think he'd be okay. I think his style of coaching would still work in today's college game. I think he can. I think he's awesome at getting the best out of guys, and I think even though he's 71, I think he's a young 71, if that makes sense. Now, are you going to get 10 years out of John Beilein? No, but you might get 5 or 6 years out of him, and to me, that's okay, especially considering where this program is today. That's how I see it. I think John Beilein would be at least number 2, if not at least number 3, if not 2 on my list. Number 1 on my list would probably be Chris Mack, the former coach at Louisville. I actually think he would be an awesome hire. Not sure how likely that is. Obviously, McDermott would be high on my list, but it looks like he's going to get an extension at Creighton and retire there. But outside of those two, I actually think Beilein might be my top choice. So, I mean, that's where I stand on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Chris Mack, I mean, his Louisville run was I would say the one really good year, but his really to me he's known more as an Xavier coach. You know what they did, several number one overall seeds and everything that they did at Xavier.
Right.
You're talking about similar, at least I would assume similar resources at Louisville and Xavier. Probably more Louisville, for basketball because they're more basketball school, but which I don't know. They do good in both. They here last year, but not this year in basketball. But anyway, I would love the Chris Mack hire. I would love a Thad Matta hire too. If you want to talk about coaches that have had high level success, it doesn't get much better than Thad Matta, who has had as much success in his coaching Butler to another great season. I've mentioned him several times. He's only 55 years old. He's had Ohio State 2 national championship games. I mean, listen, that's his high. I mean, that's not an easy job. I know people think it's Ohio State, but tell me anybody that's won there besides him. Nobody.
That's fair.
And it's because it's such a football-driven school. Everything they do is for football. Now, it's a better job now. He left it a good job, and Chris Holtman's kind of run it into the ground a little bit, which is another surprise. And Holtman may actually get considered for the West Virginia job if things went kind of south. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying you can go wrong with Beilein, but you're going to be doing the same thing you're doing right now. Again, in my opinion, it'd probably only be 2 to 3 years. I don't think if you get up past he's 71 and about to be 72. You get up past 3 years, he's 75. Come on, man. That's the whole. That's I mean, you rarely see guys coaching to that age anymore. It's very rare. Krzyzewski did it. I think you see Fisher do it at San Diego State. But it doesn't have. You don't see it like it used to be. Everywhere there was old guys everywhere. It's really become a young man's game, and you got to keep up with the young guys. And you just can't convince me that a 41-year-old Will Wade, what he probably does in a day's work or whatever over the course of a week, can a 71 to 75-year-old guy duplicate that? I don't know. It's hard for me to. It just worries me. So
yes,
I would rather. I'm just leaning young for this hire, and you're in the same situation. If a young guy doesn't work out, you got to make another hire as you are if you hire Beilein. In my opinion, either way, you're going to be turning it around and hiring somebody else in the next couple of years. But Beilein would be the safe choice.
Yeah, and that's a fair argument. The age is definitely a fair argument, and it's a fair argument to say, he's not coached in college since NIL and the transfer portal became a thing, right?
Yeah, but
I don't worry about that too much because I think, and I've also heard people online say, his style, it takes a year for guys to get used to it. Again, with the portal, he can go out and recruit players in year one that can play his system. So I don't think that's an issue either. But I don't know. I guess my thought is this. If you get a young coach and he comes in here and just knocks it out of the park, he may not stay that long anyway before he goes off to a blue blood school like a Kansas or a Kentucky or wherever, That's my fear.
You can't. Yeah, I know, but you can't hire people like that.
I agree. I agree that I'm not saying it should be your number one thing, but I mean, I guess that's my counter argument to your argument about him not being here long.
It's the Big 12. I mean, there's only so many of those jobs available. Uh, and if Yormark keeps taking it in the direction he is, a Big 12 job is going to be exclusive in basketball as it is, the SEC jobs are in football. So I think, one thing I'm kind of certain about is the future of West Virginia basketball. I do believe it's going to be in a good position, like really good position heading forward. Now, I don't know about wins on the floor, but as far as status and the conference and all that, I do feel really good about that. So, I think what it's going to be, look what Bob did for the school. I mean, we really rival anybody in facilities. And then, a guy that gets hired is going to, the only thing we don't know is what the NIL situation really is. What can they really afford? What is the actual realistic brass tacks numbers on the situation? We just don't. We're not privy to those numbers, and people won't tell us.
Yeah.
Which I think is ridiculous. But if everybody's cards are out on the table, you could use it negatively to recruit against people. So,
yeah,
sucks.
Right. Yeah, the one thing I haven't heard people talk about, and this is one thing that does concern me a little bit, is it's my understanding when he was at Cleveland with the Cleveland Cavaliers that he wasn't there some controversy over some remarks he made that offended some of the players or something. Do you recall that?
John Beilein?
Yes.
Yeah, that did happen.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he allegedly used the word thugs in front of the team. And I think some of the players took exception to that. So what concerns me a little bit, and I don't think he meant it. I don't think he meant anything by it. I've not heard anything bad about John Beilein's character at all. Here it is right here. I found it. Detroit News.
It did happen.
The disconnect between Beilein and the Cavaliers players grew when he said his team was no longer playing like a bunch of thugs during a team meeting in January. Beilein later apologized and explained he meant to say slugs. But that only happened, a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it wasn't long ago, right.
And it was 2020 to be exact. February of 2020 is when that was reported on. So it's been 4 years. A lot of the players he would recruit might remember that or know about that, and I'm not sure, is that something that would be a deterrent for a recruit or a transfer portal player or something like that? That's a little concerning to me.
Maybe as a one-off. I don't see that being a problem across. No.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, he was talking about that N1 brand of basketball where street kind of basketball where, playing selfishly behind the back, all the dribbling.
Right.
And really it was just cancel culture. It's just really at its peak in 2020, by the way. I mean, it's been at its peak since 2020. Trying to take basically an older white guy and cancel him. And that's what had a lot to do with it. Now, he did say the words, but they weren't as harmful as people tried to make them sound either.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's just cancel culture at that point. I don't think it was as big a deal it was probably made out to be. Were there a few players that didn't like it? I'm sure. But again, had he been winning, it wouldn't have been as big a deal, I don't believe.
Never usually is.
Yeah. But anyway, so your argument about his age is totally fair. The arguments I've seen on social media about him coaching, him never coaching in the environment that we have today with NIL and the transfer portal, all that's fair. I feel like he's good enough to overcome all that. But I could be totally wrong. And my gut feeling is he's not going to get the job anyway. I think he'll end up going to a younger coach. From a successful mid-major program, whether it be a Byington at James Madison or, Scherzer from Indiana State or, Pat Kelsey or the coach from some of these other Appalachian State, some of these other smaller programs. I think that's at the end of the day, I think we'll end up landing one of those guys probably.
That's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Well, I mean, some of those guys are good enough. I mean, I was just listing off some examples. I'd be okay with Pat Kelsey. I think he's a good coach. Right. But I'm with you on the other ones. I wouldn't be happy with them either. But
like Dustin Kearns or Nico
Dustin
Medved.
Kearns, yeah.
A lot of people have loved Nico Medved. I just don't know why.
I don't either.
As far as, is there something about him on the sidelines that people like? Like, I mean, he's won at Colorado State, but it's not like he's blown it out of the water there. So people always say, well, this guy's a good coach and a hard fought to win. You give him the resources and it should add up. But I just know winners win no matter what the circumstances are, usually. That's usually truthfully how it is. You look what Beilein had to do at West Virginia in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. It was a hard job to win at.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did he do it, he did it better than almost anybody could. Getting to a Final Four is insanity, really. And Elite Eight, it's insane.
Well, Paul, do you have anything else to say about this topic?
Sure don't, buddy.
All right.
Love Beilein, just not my first choice.
I understand. Yeah, I'm with you. He's not my first, but he's definitely in my top 3. But guys, let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think about John Beilein as the candidate for the coaching job at West Virginia? Would you like to see him back, or do you agree with Paul and you think his age is a concern? And also, what do you think about Bob Huggins returning to West Virginia? And what do you think about Hoppy Kercheval's article that he wrote about it and what he's hearing about Huggins having zero chance to get that job? Not a big surprise, but, to have somebody like Hoppy Kercheval put it out there, I think it holds a lot more weight. So let us know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe on the video here. Thank you, guys. We've exceeded 1,400 subs on the channel now, so thank you for that. We're on the road to 2,000. Help us get there by subscribing. We thank you for tuning into this episode, and we're done.